We'll be starting our event within a while. Thank you. Honorable Chief Guest, respected Chair of the session, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, may I welcome you all to today's seminar on making cities sustainable, challenges and imperatives for Bangladesh. We are very much honored to have amongst us R.A.M. Obaidul Muqtadir Chowdhury MP, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Housing and Public Works as the chief guest. Distinguished guests, in today's program, at the outset, Major General MD Abu Bakr Siddiq Khan, Director General BIISS, will deliver his welcome address. This will be followed by a keynote speech by Dr. Shegufta Hussain, Research Director, BIISS. Thereafter, three presentations will be made from three distinguished panelists, Professor Nazrul Islam, Professor Emeritus, University of Dhaka, and Chairman, Center for Urban Studies, Ms. Ishita Alam Aboni, Urban Development Specialist, World Bank, and Dr. Khondakar Sabbir Ahmed, Department of Architecture, Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. Then the floor will be open for discussion. If you are interested in participating in the open discussion session, please write down your name and submit it to our representatives. Following the open discussion session, the Honorable Chief Guest will deliver his invaluable speech. Finally, today's chair of the session, Ambassador AFM Ghausal Azam Sarkar, Chairman BIISS, will make the concluding remarks, followed by an exchange of memento, photo session, and lunch. May I now request the chair of the session to kindly commence the program. Sir, over to you. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. R.A.M. Obaidul Muqtadir Chowdhury, MP, Honorable Minister of Housing and Public Works, Government of Bangladesh, Major General Muhammad Abu Bakr Siddiq Khan, Director General of BIISS, distinguished panelists, experts, esteemed guests, and participants, media friends, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. We are here today for a seminar on making cities sustainable, challenges and imperatives for Bangladesh. We are indeed honored to have the Honorable Minister as the chief guest. It's a pleasure for us to have BIISS Research Director, Dr. Shagufta Hussain, as the keynote presenter. And also we have a constellation of panelists, distinguished scholars and experts, namely Professor Nazrul Islam, Professor Emeritus, University of Dhaka and Chairman, Center for Urban Studies, Ms. Ishita Alam Aboni, Senior Environment Specialist, World Bank, Professor Dr. Khondakar Sabbir Ahmed, Department of Architecture, Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. And they are going to enlighten us on the subject. And the subject today focuses mainly the SDG 11. And we are here today. The purpose is to identify major issues and challenges of inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable housing and growth of cities of Bangladesh. present international good practices and lessons, and gain a glimpse of suggested way forward to attain SDG 11 in line with the global commitment. This platform is expected to provide an opportunity to policymakers, academics, civil society, representatives, and stakeholders in Bangladesh to deliberate, exchange insights, share best practices, and explore and identify collaborative solutions and pathways. You have already got the order of the program today from the Master of Ceremony. Therefore, without much ado, we are requesting the Director General BIISS to take the podium to make welcome address. Thank you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected Chief Guest, RAM Obaidul Muqtadir Chaudhuri, MP, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Housing and Public Works, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, respected Chairman BIISS, Ambassador AFM Gausul Azam Sarkar, learned audience, distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. On behalf of Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, I welcome you all to today's seminar on Making Cities Sustainable, Challenges and Imperatives for Bangladesh. Our heartfelt gratitude to the respected Chief Guest for gracing this occasion with his kind presence. At the very outset, I would like to pay my solemn reverence to the memory of the Father of the Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the main architect of our independence. I'd also like to pay my tribute to all the martyrs and the freedom fighters who made their supreme sacrifices for the liberation of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather here to address one of the most pressing issues of our time, creating sustainable urban environments that can support our growing population and ensure a high quality of life for all. Bangladesh is experiencing rapid urbanization. Our cities are expanding at an unprecedented rate, driven by economic growth and population influx. While urbanization brings opportunities for development and progress, it also poses significant challenges. The need for sustainable cities is not just a global imperative, but a critical necessity for our nation. Our cities are growing faster, and this rapid expansion often leads to unplanned development, straining our resources and infrastructure. Urban areas are major contributors to pollution and environmental degradation. From air and water pollution to the loss of green spaces, the environmental toll of urbanization is significant. Many of our cities struggle with inadequate infrastructure. Roads, public transportation, sanitation, and housing often fail to meet the needs of the population, leading to congestion, inefficiency, and poor living conditions. Dear audience, to tackle these challenges, we need robust policy frameworks that prioritize sustainability. This includes urban planning regulations, environmental laws, and policies that promote inclusive development. Collaboration between the government and the private sector is also very crucial. Public-private partnerships can bring in the necessity of investment, expertise, and innovation to drive sustainable urban development. Sustainable cities are built with the active participation of the residents. Engaging communities in planning and decision-making processes ensure the development meets the needs for all the citizens and foster a sense of ownership and responsibility. Integrating the green spaces and eco-friendly designs into our urban landscape is essential. Green infrastructure not only enhances our cities, beauty, but also helps manage storm waters, reduce heat, and improve air quality. Despite developing efficient and accessible public transportation systems is vital for modern cities. Reducing dependency on private vehicles can significantly lower urban population, pollution, and congestion, making our cities more livable. Effective waste management systems are crucial for sustainability. This includes recycling programs, waste to energy projects, and community-led initiatives to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Learned participants. Leveraging technology can transform our cities into smart cities. This includes using data and digital tools to improve urban services, enhance connectivity, and ensure efficient resource management. Promoting the use of renewable energy sources such as solar and wind can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and lower our carbon footprint. Bangladesh has already taken several steps towards creating sustainable cities. Projects like Dhaka City Corporation Initiative for Green Spaces, improved waste management, and public transportation are commendable. However, we need to scale up these efforts and ensure their effective implementation across all urban areas. Distinguished guests, building sustainable cities is a collective responsibility. The government, private sector, and the citizens must work together to achieve this goal. We need comprehensive plans, adequate funding, and a commitment to sustainability at all levels of society. Let us all pledge to contribute to this vital cause and work together a brighter, greener future for our citizens. The path to sustainable urban development is fraught with challenges, but it also filled with immense opportunities. By addressing the issues head-on and working collaboratively, we can transform our cities into hubs of sustainability and prosperity. Let us seize this moment and make a lasting impact for our future generations. Finally, again, I express my gratitude to the respected chief guest, distinguished panelists, media representatives, and the learned audience for encouraging us with your kind participation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Joy Bangla.
Thank you, Director General, for setting the tone of the seminar today. I'd like to request Dr. Shagufta Hussain to make his keynote presentation.
Respected Chief Guest, respected Chairman and Director General of BIISS, learned panelists and participants, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. Already the Chairman and Director General Sir has said the prelude of today's seminar, and let me begin with the definition of urbanization. And the most common definition of urbanization is process of increasing concentration of population in urban areas, which results in growth and expansion of cities and transforms rural landscapes into urbanized environment. Urbanization is a global phenomenon which is driven by various social, economic, and demographic factors. There is a contrasting urbanization scenario around the globe over time. In 1950, only 1/3 of the population worldwide lived in urban settlements, while in 2050, it is expected that more than 6 billion people will live in urban areas. So if we want to define sustainable city, which can also be termed as green city or eco city, it can be defined as an urban enclave whose design, construction, and operation prioritizes preservation of natural world along with economic, social, and physical and health and wellness of inhabitants. And it is a concept which is about to create a harmonious coexistence of humans and nature. In 2015, United Nations adopted Sustainable Development Goals with the aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure by 2030, people will enjoy peace and prosperity. There are 17 goals of SDG, and among which SDG 11 or Sustainable Goal 11 is about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable by 2030. SDG 11 aims to renew and plan cities and other human settlements, which will offer opportunities for all to access to basic services, energy, housing, transport, and green public spaces, as well as reducing resource use and environmental impacts. SDG 11 has 10 targets and 16 indicators. The 10 targets that SDG 11 has is already given in front of you. And Bangladesh prioritizes on ensuring women, children, elderly, and persons with disabilities to have convenient access to public transports, at least minimum 20% seats, which is SDG indicator 11.2.1. Now, if we want to see the urbanization scenario of Bangladesh, it can be said that urbanization is not a very new phenomena in the country, and Bangladesh is rapidly urbanizing, which expects to host 56% of its population to live in urban areas by 2050. In Bangladesh, large cities with most economic investments and infrastructures attracts more population than the other cities of the country. However, unplanned urban transformation process disrupts balance among social, economic, and built environment, which challenges sustainable cities and communities. So this table shows the percentage of urban population in Bangladesh, and it can be seen from the table that Bangladesh has been experiencing rapid increase in urban population ever since its independence. And the urban population of Bangladesh increased from 9.4% in 1975 to 41.7% in 2024. It is estimated that in Bangladesh, 86.5 million people will live in urban areas by 2030, which will be increased to 100 million by 2050. This is the urbanization scenario of major cities of the country, the problems that relies with the urbanization in major cities of the country. From this table, we can see that Chattogram faces the problem of filling up of ponds and other water reservoirs. Hill cutting is a major problem in Chattogram. Rajshahi faces unplanned urbanization, which leads to high risk of essential urban systems. Khulna faces rapid, haphazard, unplanned, and unstable growth of urban areas. Sylhet has environmental pollution problem, inadequate waste management, lack of clean water, traffic issues, flooding, air and noise pollution. Borishal faces environmental pollution from huge amount of unmanaged solid wastes. Rangpur is highly prone to earthquake and fire hazards, and Mymensingh faces untreated urban and industrial waste disposal. These are basically the divisional headquarters, problems related with the divisional headquarters. There are other smaller cities which also have more or less these type of problems. So if we focus on Dhaka, Dhaka has become a mega city and economic hub from a peaceful small town. Now the city stands fourth among the most densely populated cities worldwide, and the city has seen rapid and irregular urban growth, that growth of built-up areas both outwards and upwards. Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics revealed that Dhaka division has 26.88% of the total population of the country, and Dhaka city has highest number of urban population. Dhaka's population is projected to rise to 27.3 million by 2030. According to a report of World Bank, it is predicted that by 2050, more 30 million people will be internally displaced and who are expected to migrate to major cities, including Dhaka, and which is a major concern for Dhaka. So the major impediments for our cities to become sustainable one can be divided into four broad categories. These are environmental concerns, infrastructure and services, social insecurities, and human-induced hazards. The environmental concerns that are related with our urban areas, we all know this scenario. These concerns includes filling up of water bodies, reduced open spaces, increased air pollution, spatial expansion in the urban areas, fringe areas. So water bodies inside and surrounding areas of Dhaka cities are constantly filling up, and open spaces in the city are also reduced. When I was taking interview of Director Technical of Dhaka WASA for my PhD thesis, he was mentioning that for a healthy environment of a city, it is necessary to have greenery of 25% of total area of the city, and 12% of water retention areas are necessary. But Dhaka has only a little more than 3% of greenery and 2% of water retention sites, which indicates the situation of the city. And we regularly watch news of air pollution in the newspaper, and spatial expansion in the fringe areas are a very common problem in the major cities of the country. The infrastructure and services related concerns include unplanned residential areas, scarcity of affordable housing, lack of basic urban services and facilities, problems of solid waste management, vulnerable urban transportation system. In Dhaka city, 40% of the residents live in slums or irregular settlements or unplanned settlements, which has lack of basic urban services and facilities and problems of solid waste management. Social insecurities are also a major concern for a city to become sustainable. When a person first comes to a major city, he or she becomes involved in informal jobs and start to live in informal settlements like slums or irregular settlements, and which creates inequality and deprivation among them. And finally, the human-induced hazard includes fire hazards, urban flooding, earthquake, disaster risks. Due to unplanned construction of buildings, fire hazards has increased nowadays. Urban flooding is a common problem due to constant filling up of water bodies. And Bangladesh is located in the earthquake disaster zone. So if we see the map, we can see that major part of Dhaka city is located in intermediate and high earthquake hazard vulnerable zone. And according to a study of Raju, if an earthquake of 6.9 magnitude takes place in Madhupur fault, almost 8,65,000 buildings will be collapsed in Dhaka. So these are the major impediments for our cities to become a sustainable city. So what we can do, or what the government can do, because urbanization is an inevitable process for economic growth of any country. So we cannot deny the necessity of urbanization. Government is taking initiative for sustainable urbanization. Government is working to make Dhaka more livable, more livable and resilient, and as well as the other cities of the country. Government has published the Gazette notification for detailed area plan 2016 to 2035, which is expected to guide future construction in Dhaka city, use of land and demarcation of canals and flow areas. The Delta plan has also portrayed concerns about adverse impacts of rapid unplanned urbanization. And the Perspective Plan 2021 has also mentioned about the results of unplanned urbanization and suggested that major overhaul in the approach to urbanization is needed and balanced development of many urban centers. The strategy suggests for a major change in the urban governance by decentralization and participatory development. Improvements is needed in land use planning and allocation, focusing on urban physical environment. Major and sustainable expansion in urban services through public and private investments are necessary. Along with these government initiatives, it is necessary to promote equity, welfare, and shared prosperity for attaining urban sustainability. It is also necessary for the participation of communities in decision making and planning for constructive impacts to make cities more sustainable. There are many organizations which are involved in urban management system, and there is a lack of coordination among the urban management organization. It is necessary to have coordination among the urban management organizations. And finally, we have lots of plans and policies, and implementation of the plans and policies on time is needed. If the policies and plans are not implemented on time, it will not become successful, and it will be very difficult to make our cities sustainable. With this, I end my presentation here. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarupta Hussain, for giving detailed information about the needs and requirements of the sustainable city planning and also the current state of Bangladesh cities and its expansion and development. Thank you. The next will be the panelist who will be intervening. And at the beginning of this segment, I would request Professor Nazrul Islam, Professor Emeritus, University of Dhaka and Chairman Center of Urban Studies. Professor Islam, please take your turn, please.
Please. Thank you, Ambassador FM Gausul Azam Sarkar, Honorable Chairman of BIS, Honorable Chief Guest, and distinguished guests and panelists and audience. First of all, I thank Bangladesh Institute of International Strategic Studies for organizing this very important seminar on making cities sustainable, challenges and imperatives for Bangladesh, and for inviting me to be a panelist in this very important seminar. Dr. Segupta Hussain has very clearly enunciated the problems and the scenario of urbanization in Bangladesh, and also touching a little bit also on the global situation and problems of cities, finally touching upon some very important problems in the divisional cities of Bangladesh and particularly on the capital, Dhaka. I think the context of today's seminar at BIISS is quite relevant in the sense that cities also play a very strategic role nationally and also internationally within the country and also in the region and in the global context. Bangladesh is a small country, we know, but with a huge population. And Dhaka, the capital, is also a mega city, one of the top 10 mega cities in terms of population. So that makes Dhaka important and also strategically demands discussion and focus. Dr. Segupta has already mentioned she has given the details of the sustainable cities concept, sustainable development goals. Very briefly, we can look back to 1987, when the World Commission on Environment, they had a conference on our common future in Vancouver, in Canada, in 1987. The concept of sustainability, sustainable development, in a way started from there. Then in 1992, the UN conference at Rio, better known as the Rio Conference, the concept of sustainable development was elaborated. And in 2015, UN General Assembly adopted the SDG Sustainable Development Goals. And we are talking about cities, which is actually goal number 11, making cities and communities sustainable. That is, making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So the sustainable concept has been here since 1915 or even earlier. Now, as an urban student of urban studies, we follow these developments. And finally, in 2016, in Quito, Ecuador, there was this slogan, New Urban Agenda. New Urban Agenda, where they said, leave no one behind. Very important, particularly in the context of the poor in the city and also the unfortunate citizens, that leave no one behind. This is very important. I'll come back to it a little later. And in our discussion here, I will refer to two dimensions of urban agenda. At the national level, we have the whole country. For example, in Bangladesh, we should consider urbanization of Bangladesh as a whole. And we are now, Dr. Segupta has already mentioned that by 2030, something like 50%, or 2041, something like 41%, 50% of Bangladesh will be urban. And by end of the century, maybe 100 million people will live in cities of Bangladesh. Anyway, we now have 8 divisional cities, metro cities. Dhaka is the mega city with population of the mega cities about 20 million. But when we talk about Dhaka Metro City, Dhaka North City Corporation, South City Corporation together is about 12 million, the two cities together. And the mega city, which includes the area covered by Raju, which is about 1,500 square kilometers. It includes Dhaka's northern city, Narayanganj, Tongi, Ghazipur, Savar, and all these areas together. So there's a lot of rural areas also within the mega city boundary. The population of the mega city is 20 million plus, 2 koti bataro beshi. And central city, metropolitan, is about 12 million. So huge population. And the total national urban population today is close to 6 crore, 60 million, which is close to, like Dr. Sagupta said, 41.7% of the total population is now urban. This is a huge population. And if we talk about managing this population is very critical. And in the country right now, according to BBS, there are something like 505 urban centers. It includes very small urban center of 5,000 people and also the mega city Dhaka or metro city Dhaka. So we have to talk about, in terms of strategic discussion, we have to talk about all the cities of the country. Mega city, metro cities, divisional cities, 8 of them, district headquarters cities, 64, out of which about 45 have population of 1 lakh or more. Each one is a big town. So in terms of sustainability, we have to think about making the whole urban system, national urban system, sustainable. Urban system, as I have mentioned, these different size categories. The hierarchy of cities, towns, starting from the top mega city down to Upazila, which are about 500, and then also union towns, growth centers, which are about 5,000. So Bangladesh, although we say it is a rural country, actually it is also an urban country because 40% are already urban, and pretty soon it will be 50%. So we have to think about the whole country and the urban system of the country as a whole. Okay, so what do? The new urban agenda adopted in Rio in 2016 has emphasized on adoption of a national urban policy. That means how cities will be developed in the country, each one of them, cities and towns and small towns. We cannot forget the small ones when we talk about mainly the big ones like Dhaka. So whole urban system should be brought under discussion, under strategic focus. And that comes when we have a national urban policy. We have worked on this policy. In fact, I was heading the group which were formulating the urban policy in 2011. And we had a huge conference, 3-day, at the Bangabandhu International Center. And we, in a way, we made a primary adoption of the policy. But today it is 2024, from 2011 to 2024. And the national urban policy is yet to be finalized. I mention this because we have a chief guest, our Honorable Minister for Housing and Urban Development and Works, who unfortunately is not in charge of the urban policy. The Minister for Local Government, he is looking after this. Okay, so this is the important part, the national urban policy. I took the opportunity of this rostrum to emphasize on adoption of the urban policy. So I have limited time, so I will not go into other aspects of the discussion. So I will only conclude by saying that on the one hand, we have to look at the total urban scenario, and the other hand, we have to look at the city-specific problems, which Dr. Segupta has already mentioned. So we should also emphasize on the city-specific problem. For example, the problems of Dhaka. Our Honorable Minister is in charge of all the development authorities in cities like Dhaka, Raju. They have already adopted a plan, a structure plan, urban area plan, and detailed area plan. So they are in the process of implementation. So in that, the main problem, I think, is, Segupta has already mentioned, coordination of agencies. But more than that coordination, we have to emphasize on management of cities. Management is the key problem. Some people say Dhaka is too big. What about Mymensingh? It is not too big, but still not very well managed. Look at Tokyo, 30 million people. No problem. It is well managed. Even look at Bangkok, 20 million people. we don't talk about too many problems because it is very well managed. So I will conclude by saying, please look at the urban policy adoption and also look at the issue of good urban management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Islam, for highlighting many of the issues at hand in terms of urban policy and urban planning. And thank you for informing the audience that urban policy is in the process, and it is of critical importance that this urban policy harmonize the policies of all stakeholders and all relevant authorities. So that is a stupendous work to be addressed. So now I would request our second panelist, Ms. Ishita Alom Aboni, Senior Environment Specialist, World Bank, to take the floor, take the podium. Thank you.
ল্যাপটপটা বন্ধ Good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister for Housing and Public Works, Mr. R.A.M. Obaidul Muqtadir Chaudhary, MP. Chair ASM Gausul Azam Sarkar, distinguished panel of experts, and everyone present. It is a pleasure to be here as one of the discussants to talk about the challenges and imperatives in making Bangladesh cities more sustainable. I want to anchor my discussion on the government vision and priorities and how they look at this, which also aims to build on achieving this SDG goals that we have. Government Vision 2021 outlines the ambition for Bangladesh to become an upper middle income country by 2031. And I want to take off from this point on the transforming Dhaka in the keynote presentation. To recap, Dhaka accounts for a third of the urban population, a fifth of the national GDP, and a third of all the jobs in the country. Therefore, the path for Bangladesh to reach upper middle income status in a generation is dependent on Dhaka. As global experience has shown, no country in the world has moved up within the middle income status without developing its cities. Most countries that have achieved middle income status did so when the majority of the citizens were living in cities. Furthermore, countries that have high income status comes accompanied with 70 to 80% of their residents living in the cities. Bangladesh is currently 38% urban. As its economy grows and more people move to urban centers, the country will need to ensure the fast-growing cities are livable and productive, and that the gains of urbanization are shared by all. Greater resilience and sustainability are key to achieving this goal. However, Bangladesh faces challenges in this journey ahead. According to World Bank's recent poverty assessments, progress in national poverty reduction has been slowing down in spite of the economic growth. The trend is especially alarming in cities like Dhaka and Chittagong. In these urban areas, manufacturing has had the biggest impact on poverty reduction, but job growth has slowed down. Bangladesh's biggest cities, which we expect would be driving this national growth and prosperity, may in fact be slowing down today. Bangladesh's path to this middle income status will hinge particularly on leveraging Dhaka. Dhaka, the capital, is a primate city. In fact, Dhaka's population is more than 4 times greater than that of Chittagong, Bangladesh's second largest city. Dhaka's experience as a primate city is not uncommon for most developing countries, as at first, as national income rises, the largest cities' share of the urban population increases. Over time, it starts to decline in favor of more equal spatial development. The tipping point is usually when the national GDP per capita reaches the global average. Such trends tend to occur hand in hand with structural transformation as the economy shifts from the agriculture towards more industry. Global empirical evidence shows that higher urban primacy can foster economic growth at the early stages of development. On the other hand, there is little evidence supporting the idea of cities being too large or that there may be an optimal size for a city. The key is for cities to be well planned and managed such that they can efficiently and sustainably provide services and economic opportunities for its residents, regardless of its size. As experience in China and other countries has shown, restricting people from moving to the biggest cities is counterproductive. Strong barriers to labor mobility constrains urban growth and may result in large income losses. In short, for a city like Dhaka, it is more costly to be too small than too large. The economic density in Dhaka's core declined between 1996 and 2010 based on a nighttime light intensity and the economic census data. Should Bangladesh look to secondary cities outside Dhaka to drive this national income growth and lift the country to the other upper middle income status? In other countries facing congestion and poor livability in their biggest cities, building new towns and relocating population often emerges as a tempting policy option. The growth and prosperity of secondary cities should be supported, and efforts should be made to promote the development of a diverse and complementary systems of cities. In Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and other rapidly growing cities in developing countries, it's more important to build up job centers and to help people commute to them so that urban centers are livable, productive, and benefit the country as a whole. Traffic congestion causes firms to decentralize in response to rising commute cost and land prices. New employment centers emerge outside the city center in areas where land is cheaper and there is better access to major highways. In Metro Dhaka, formal jobs in manufacturing are already suburbanizing quickly to areas without adequate affordable housing or basic community services for their workforces. In the East, rapid and poorly regulated development in greenfield areas prone to flooding risk, duplicating the livability issues of central Dhaka. If we look at global experience, Seoul Metropolitan, for example, less than 1/3 of all jobs in the metropolitan region are found in the central district. And more than half of all new jobs created from 2000 to 2010 were in the suburbs. In Paris and in New York, fewer than 30% of daily trips are destined for the city center. The rest are between the suburbs. Like any fast-growing city, Dhaka needs additional business districts outside the city center, so the massive labor market converging on the central district can effectively split into multiple overlapping zones, each covering an hour commute to a different job center. Metro Dhaka's economic output falls short of what would be expected of a metropolitan area of this size and population density. The issue is not whether Metro Dhaka is too large or too dense, but how well its growth is managed. For example, from 1995 to 2005, the population grew by 50%, while the road surface area increased only by 5%. Average speed from 21 kilometers per hour in 2008 to 6.4 kilometers per hour now. And the congestion cost the economy billions of dollars each year. In contrast, Bangkok and Singapore, cities of similar density have mean road speed of greater than 20 kilometers per hour. In total, approximately 80 billion would be needed to be invested over the next 20 years only to bridge the gap in basic infrastructure and boost the economic competitiveness of the metro region and thus the country as a whole. Moreover, challenges related to traffic congestion, waterlogging, affordable housing, solid waste management, and other basic services are inherently multi-sectoral. In Dhaka's context, three sectors in particular have complex and profound interactions that must be accounted for in its strategies and plans. One is land development, mobility, and flood management. The government strategies for land development and mobility must be designed in a way that responds to changes in the metro-wide economy, where farms are locating and how people commute each day. Neighborhood level drainage improvements must be connected to the citywide system and regional watersheds to be effective. And flood management strategies must be harmonized with strategies for land development and mobility so that the elements of one do not become impediments to the other. These sectors all stand apart because they depend on metropolitan scale system rather than municipal or neighborhood scale, and together largely determine the quality of the urban built environment. It is unlikely Dhaka would be transformed into a livable and thriving megacity through separate sectoral strategies and investment programs. While many high-quality comprehensive plans have been adopted for land use, such as the structure plan, the transport, the RSTP, and other sectors like the drainage and the solid waste, the interrelated issues highlighted earlier are closely linked to the challenges in their implementation, particularly close coordination and integration across the institutional and jurisdictional boundaries. By one count, responsibilities for service delivery, development regulation, and land administration functions spans at least 55 distinct agencies. As a result, large-scale sector-specific capital investment projects miss important opportunities to capitalize on interactions among mobility, land use, and resilience to climate change. This demands a spatially differentiated and institutionally integrated multi-sectoral approach to address the needs of the Metro Dhaka region, as well as better integration with the rest of the country. Interventions need to be embedded in integrated planning, including in land use and basic service delivery, with 4 overarching interventions: improvement of urban governance and coordination, increasing the supply of affordable housing, retrofitting, enhancements of resilience in urban and rural connectivity, retrofitting existing and new plans for resilient infrastructure, services, and buildings, as well as a strategy to manage the internal climate migration. Therefore, to improve Dhaka's livability, it is critical not only to consider the impact of climate, but also to consider and plan how climate impact will shape Bangladesh's future, spatial transformation, and the growth pattern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ishita Alomaboni, for going into depth of the issues and also making some very relevant and important recommendations. Indeed, thank you very much for your contribution. So now we would request Professor Dr. Khondokar Shabbir Ahmed, Department of Architecture, Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, to make his panel intervention.
Honorable Minister for Public Housing Works, honorable directors, senior leadership, distinguished panelists, friends and colleagues. Assalamu alaikum. Actually, today we have we're discussing on a very, very important SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, Goal 11, in the context of Bangladesh and Dhaka particularly. And it's very timely for us to really look into this issue because as we talk, our cities are growing very fast. Since most of the audience here is from Bangladesh, I will try to speak in Bangla if you don't mind. Well, আমি একটু বাংলায় বলছি যেহেতু সবাই এখানে আমি জানি না ফরেন অডিয়েন্স আছে কি কোনোভাবে কানেক্টেড আদারওয়াইজ আই এম ওকে ওকে okay all right then I'll keep it English. Well, every time we talk about Bangladesh and every time we talk about our cities, we are exposed to huge problems. Number of problems are cited, starting from flooding, heat island, and problems of population, healthcare, job, and economy. But that's the perspective. Very important that we identify our problems and address those technically and through policies. But I want to take a different position. We can look at problems, but deliberating on problems often do not yield the right results. What really yields the right results is something that we can go back to our liberation war. Bangladesh, Bengalis were considered as a non-martial race by the Britishers. And then when we were having a liberation war with one of the sixth largest military on the planet, where we didn't have much tools, equipments, ammunitions. But what we had as a great leader, Bangabandhu, and the inspirational philosophy. I think that should be the standpoint when we look at our cities now. It should not be emanate only from problems, deliberating on problems. I think we should look at our problems from an inspirational, from a positive direction. So I'd like to, present my talk from the points that has been presented today. For example, we're talking about safe and affordable housing. We're talking about urbanization. So we need to also look at the history of Bangladesh, of Bengal particularly. What are the positive aspects of this place? Why this place has so much population? Why there is growth, given the fact that most of the developing countries are losing their population, like Japan. There are series of villages are empty now in Japan. And Europe, they are losing their labor population as well. So what's happening here? So we need to look at that. From that perspective, I like to say that there are certain good things happening here, and there's a history to it. The history is, if you look at the Mughal period, the peak time of the Mughal period, 42% of global economy was contributed by the Mughals, almost next to China. China was also a very good contributor to the world economy, but during the Mughal period, 42% of the global economy was contributed by the Mughals. And this economy, this revenue was coming from the three regions, which is Bangla, Bihar, and Odisha. And of the three regions, the most fertile and most productive region was Bangla or Bengal, and now most of it is Bangladesh. So what was there? We're talking before the Industrial Revolution. So it was agriculture, it was craft, it was artisans. They were producing stuff having a global impact, a global necessity requirement. There was a global market for it. So we were doing those things. Even in the recent past, we went through this world food crisis, where many of the developed nations they have put on rations. When you go to supermarkets, you cannot buy more than 4 kg of rice. As opposed to Bangladesh, prices did jack up a bit, but we could manage. Why? Because we could produce our own food. We had this agricultural base, which is ancient. When we talk about cities, where did cities come from? Cities came from the agriculture. Rice cultivation was the major contributor to cities in this part of the region, because we could produce more than what we need. So trade and commerce came in, and then the cities evolved. So there is a symbiotic relationship between agriculture and the city, the growth of cities. Now, what I'm trying to say that we should not focus more on the Western models of cities. We should look at our own strengths, where agriculture is a very important aspect. So we should think of our cities having a connectivity with agriculture, with greenery, with this kind of growth. Cities are, desert, food deserts. You cannot produce food in our cities. So these are food deserts. Now people are talking about how we can make our cities more productive. We're talking about roof gardens, but through proper planning and adjustments, we can actually integrate agriculture within our cities. Now, if you look at our cities, you'll see that the topography of our region is you have lowlands, you have floodplains, and you have highland. What we did, we filled those lands. The lowlands had access to water, so good for rice cultivation and other crops. But what we did, we filled those up and then produce our cities. So when you have a loose soil filled up, it doesn't give you good standing from an earthquake point of view. When there is an earthquake, where there is ground motion, these filled up lands, they liquefy, they move, they behave like water, and then they lose the bearing capacity and buildings collapse. Some of the examples we have seen in Balusri area as well. So we really have to start from our own strengths and own potentialities to really look at this SDG goal. So what I'm trying to say that in our planning policies, for cities even, we can think of agriculture, integration of growth of agriculture within that. So that's number one. When we talk about housing, we're talking about safe and affordable housing. When you say affordable housing, we must also think of the energy footprint of the houses. How much money I have to pay to have my electricity running, to have the light and fan. So there is a concept called energy poverty. If you spend more than 10% of your salary, then you are in energy poverty. So when we talk about architecture, you have to think whether that building is taking advantage of the natural airflow, is it taking advantage of natural light, or it is paying for the energy for during the daytime even. So these are the things that really come out of the standard straitjacket thinking. When you talk about affordability and sustainable transport systems, we have to think about walkability. We call mobility now. Transportation is all about the transport. But when you talk about mobility, it includes everything. Whether you can, once you come out of this metro station down to the ground, can you walk down to your office? Can you walk down to your home? Do you have that walkable infrastructure there? So these are the things that really has to come into the fore to really issue this concept of transportation. You do not need rocket engineering. You do not need huge investment to make the cities walkable. We have to address that. We're talking about inclusive and sustainable urbanization. Well, we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of reports and seminars and international visits, but what we don't have is this is not percolating into the regulatory framework. If you have a policy, very important, we must have policy, and then the policy needs to be translated into the regulatory framework so that it can impact the day-to-day development of your cities, in the development of the footpaths, of the roads, and lightings, and buildings and setbacks. It's very important because we are exposed to climate changes. It is better to call it climate disruption because climate change is a natural phenomenon. It has been happening for millions of years, but what is happening now is climate disruption. Why it is disruption? Because you're getting so much heat, you're getting so much rainfall in a short period of time, you're getting floods. As you know, cities are watertight, waterproof surfaces. We have metal roads, we have paving, we have buildings. So absorptivity of water is gone, and also the water drainage potential. The natural ones, we have filled them up. So these are the things we need to look at this. And I'm coming from BUET. My field is architecture, but I have worked on urban climate. My PhD is that area. I have published significantly, and my papers are on the urban comfort issue, it has been cited more than 500 citations, and it's growing. So we have the technology, we have the knowledge, and we have the ideas how to implement. Hatir Jheel is one of the projects that came out of our class. It's now we have that's a gift to the city. So these are the things that we really need to come out of the standard box and move forward. The question of flood is a man-made, I would say. This area has been flooded, and flood has always been a boon for us. And if you look at the map of the Indian subcontinent, you will see the northern plains of India, all the rivers are actually being exhausted over this delta, and we are getting the advantage of rich soil. Flood give us rich soil, and the rain really doesn't give us rich soil, but rain, what it helps to give water to the plant or vegetation. So these are the surface water potentials that we have. But the way we have been moving ahead with our development, we are making ourselves vulnerable to floods. We are making ourselves vulnerable. The building codes and standards that we have, for example, in Chittagong, there are areas, we call it Bangla, we call it Nabbo, those areas are lowland areas, the waters, converts to those places. But you're making buildings there, and you're making buildings without any provision for this kind of water. If you go to Houston, you'll see the building code says that when there is rain, you really cannot put all the water to the national grid. You cannot inundate the national grid. You have to retain the water within your property first, and then slowly release it to the national grid. But what is happening in our country, where so much rain, we do not have that kind of regulations. So what is happening? We put all the water out in the national grid, and the national grid collapses, and then we are exposed to this kind of flood congestion, flood waters. So it is impacting significantly. In the city of Dhaka, there were so much canals and lakes, they were all connected to the river system. So that system has been disrupted. It's all man-made interventions. So we can recover those systems so that we can be more resilient. We have to understand the climate change is coming. It's already happening. We're getting so much rainfall. We're getting so much heat. Heat island effect is going on. So we need plantation. As it has been mentioned, the green infrastructure is required. So where do you get it? How do you implement those? All the buildings are taking up. Only place that we have is some setbacks, which is not enough. So we need to look at those issues through planning and design and through landscaping. Again, we are talking about public spaces. Of course, cities would require public spaces, and we need to create those. On the plan, if you look at the Rajuk development plan, they are mostly looking at developing building plots. So the plots, they do not have the correct parameter to create the green spaces. We are talking, often we say 20% green, 30% green. It actually depends on the per capita. The amount of energy that you use has impact on the carbon release, and that carbon release, to counterbalance that release, you need to have certain plans. There are certain parameters that needs to be there. So without being thorough in these matters, we really cannot bring in the required changes. So I think the national policies are being developed. There's a Delta plan, there is some perspective plans, there is DAP, and everything is there. But we need to bring it down on the ground. For that, there needs to be a bridging between the policy and the regulations and the enforcement also. And in Bangladesh, it is not only the enforcement that will bring the results, you need to incentivize. It's better if you do it to fiscal incentives. So I think Bangladesh Bank or the financial sector can incentivize this kind of development. You can get the funding at a lower interest rate, provided you take care of the environment. These are the things that really need to come into our discussions. So we're talking about resilience of buildings and sustainable cities. I think our architect Mazharul Islam, he's a late Mazharul Islam, he's a famous architect of Bangladesh, and he was also in the presidium of the Awami League, and he's the person who is well respected in the architectural community. when he was working with Bangabandhu, he went out to Bangabandhu for the development of Dhaka city. But Bangabandhu said, hey, stop. Think about the whole country. Plan the whole country, not the city alone. So that is something we need to, come back again. If you want to improve Dhaka, you have to improve the whole of Bangladesh. You have to look at all the cities that has been discussed here, smaller secondary town, tertiary town, all the cities must come into connection like a constellation of stars, and then it operates. And this is only possible because we have technology, we have IT, we have digital technology now. So these are the things that will really, it's very timely that we have the digital platforms now to connect the cities, to provide services. You don't have to come to Dhaka to get a service. You can get it from your own desk in a remote place. So that is possible now. We already have a digital infrastructure that we have found out during the COVID. While many countries of the world were grappling with the COVID, Bangladesh, since it started with the digitization long before, could quickly get onto this information highway and provide the services. So I think we really have to focus on the positive aspects, the energy and the inspiration of this country. Please do not focus or bogged down by the bombardments of problems that often thrown at us by international agencies and often international agencies, this is your problem, we'll give you this funding, you solve your problem. I have to understand what is my problem from the ground up, not from somebody in New York. We already know that. We have the knowledge, we have the technology, we have the capacity to address those things. So I think in the final comment, I think our approach to the urbanization and the challenges therein, we can start from the ground up and resolve this in a very short time. We have to fast track this thing. It cannot be slow. For that, you have to, through all the agencies and offices, and please pick up the people who are very proactive, who are very dynamic, who can look at the thing, who are willing to take the risk and willing to take, has the boldness to change this. In Bangladesh, you'll find people in all of the offices and communities, they'll say, oh, it's Bangladesh, this is not possible. That's very counterproductive idea. So you have to pick up the right people who can drive those things and in a very short time. So I would say that we need a mindset change, then everything, all the problems can be solved, not as a problem, but an inspirational attitude. We can get good things in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ahmed. Thank you indeed for some very important observations, and particularly you have talked about our tradition and our model, and also especially you have mentioned what is very key, I understand, is incentivization of projects and initiatives. So all these are very important. Now we have come to the segment of open discussion. Since we are trying to conclude this seminar at 1:30, so we would request those who would intervene to be very precise and brief. And please first introduce yourself and then be very specific in expressing your questions and comments. So the floor is open. I see the request from Ambassador Munshi Faiz Ahmed. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and a very warm welcome to the chief guest. I think it was a very timely and very useful seminar today. And the keynote presentation was actually has touched upon almost all the issues involved. And also the panelists have made very good points. I would just like to draw attention to 2 or 3 issues because there's a shortage of time. I think number one is everybody's talked about the importance of planning. But what strikes me is that in Bangladesh, urban planning is mostly kind of planning after the act. First, settlements grow, and then we start putting in roads and other facilities to fit them. And often, this makes things difficult. We have to, we create these facilities, and then again, we have to break them out and recreate them, destroy and rebuild. That is, I think, a very big problem that we have in our planning. So, I mean, places which have already become cities and urbanized, we cannot do much about that. We continue to plan according to what has already happened. But as we grow new cities, new urban areas, we should be able to have more far-fetched, more visionary plans, perspective plans, and planning for the future. Unless we do that, we are going to be always chasing. So I think we must get out of that habit. Of course, there are some positive signs that we have some of the satellite towns that are being built, like Purvachal and others. Some planning is being done ahead of people actually settling there, which is a good sign. Then I think another important thing that must be kept in mind is decentralization. Why people flock to the capital city or some major cities? Because there are many services that are not available in their own localities, in their smaller towns. If we can change that situation, if services are made available, most of the services, governance services, judicial services, land settlement and other issues, all these services are available in the district town or even in the upazila towns, then people would not be running to the major cities. So can we think in those terms that most of the services will be available locally and people will not be forced to come to the cities? And then some services will be made in such a way that if they move out of their cities, own locality, they won't find those services. Coming to the cities is not going, big cities is not going to help them. So they must stay there. And of course, employment opportunities and other facilities must be provided where they are right now. Not, they should not be looking for those modern facilities and coming to the cities. Here, I think we should focus on 2 things that the Honorable Prime Minister has been saying. One is that we have to make sure that we don't expand our cities and industries in such a way that agricultural land is taken away. So we have to make sure that more people can live, because population will keep growing, but of course we have succeeded in keeping it to a low level, I mean the growth of population. But still the population keeps growing, and so we need more space for people to live. But can we make sure that more people can live in smaller places? That means going upwards, which the Prime Minister has mentioned several times. And then there is the other thing that we have been also talking in Bangladesh about it. The PM has been talking about it. And I have seen this happen in some countries like China, that wherever there are population centers, all those places must have civic amenities, all civic amenities that are available in urban areas. So I think these are I think one of the speakers tried to suggest that this trying to keep people in places where they are and not allowing them to move to these big cities is counterproductive. I don't agree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your very valuable points that you have raised and explained. The next request is from M.S. Siddiqui. He is from the business community and EC member, CUS. Is
Okay, thanks to Dr. I forgot the name, Madam, and also Ms. Avanti for some information about the city center, city areas. Actually, if you look into the statistics, 30% of the total revenue comes from Dhaka city, 30% from other cities, and rest of the country contributing 40% of the revenue. And 1/3 of this job created in Dhaka city. Interestingly, we are talking about the decentralization, but Ms. Abunte also says decentralization among the cities. When Mr. Mushrif Hoy says we are decentralizing the city, making the Purvachal, our mindset is to make decentralization of residential area, not the commercial hub. That's the problem. A few years back, World Bank has suggested that there should be a commercial business hub in East Dhaka, similar to Pudong in Shanghai. There should be a commercial hub. But the policymakers in Bangladesh did not accept that. Interestingly, the problem is that we are doing the different, totally opposite. If you look into the scenario, we know the Glaxo industry. They had their factory in Chittagong. After 100 years, they are forced to shift their head office from Chittagong to Dhaka. Berger Paint, they have shifted their office from Chittagong to Dhaka after setting up their factory and office in Chittagong. Well, they did not shift their factory to Islamabad or to Dhaka, but now they are forced to here. And more interestingly, the office of Commissioner of VAT of Tangal district is within the Dhaka Stadium area. Very interesting. So what is the problem? We are concentrating all these activities, administrative activities within the Dhaka city, not only within the Saturday, a particular area of Dhaka. So people are forced to come here because they have no choice to come, stay here, have their own office. So these are what all these speakers suggested. We are doing the opposite. We shall have to change our mind. We shall have to think about how to develop. We shall have to develop the city, definitely. But the way we are thinking is totally different. We shall have to decentralize this urbanization. At the same time, also decentralization within the city, so that people have the comfortable life. Why the Glaxo or Berger Paint came to Dhaka city? If you talk about the competitiveness, doing business is cheapest in Dhaka city. And if you compare the competitiveness of the cities or area of Dhaka, Bangladesh, Dhaka is the most competitive area for doing the business. Very interesting. The housing cost of living, salary, everything is expensive here. Even then, the cost of product within the Dhaka city is cheaper than cost of product in Dinajpur or Cox's Bazar. The policymaker should think over it. What is the problem? This problem is not automatic. We have created, policymakers have created this problem in this country. So we shall have to resolve this problem. Decentralization of not on economic activities. In order to decentralize the economic activities, we shall have to decentralize the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siddiqui, for your very relevant points. Now I give the floor to Mr. Salahuddin Ahmed, former member of BERC.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. This is Salahuddin Ahmed. I was member of Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission. I was also a banker and a TV news presenter. Now I'm running a storytelling show program called It's Nice to Be Nice. In fact, I picked up some points from various speakers, panelists, and commentators also. Major overhauling needed, fine coordination of agencies, Dr. Shegufta mentioned, and timely implementation of those. And the most important one, among the most important ones I found was from architect Professor Ahmed. He mentioned about incentivizing housing projects so that they follow what should be followed, in fact, and not just plainly leaving the floodplains to be left to be for their own use, just like as they wish now. And I most respectfully remember of the fact that he mentioned kindly that architect Mazharul Islam, one of the toppers in Awami League those days, went to Bangabandhu, and Bangabandhu mentioned that no, shudhu keno Dhaka, তোমাকে সারা দেশটা নিয়ে ভাবতে হবে। তো সেই ভাবনাটা আমি, sorry, I shifted to বাংলা, বাংলাদেশ নিয়ে বলছি যে জন্যে। In fact, Honorable Minister Rabi, মানে রবি ভাই বলি আমরা পলিটিক্যাল কানেকশনের জন্য, উনি মুক্তাদির চৌধুরী, Honorable Muqtadir Chaudhary. In fact, I was attending a reception given to him by the locals. I also come from the sacred, I am also son of the sacred soil of Brahmanbaria. এটা ভালো লাগছে এই জন্য বলতে যে আসলে সোনার দেশ পেতে হলে তো সোনার মানুষগুলোকে পেতে হবে। তো সোনার মানুষদের ভাবনাগুলোকে আমাদের আইদার মেনে নিতে হবে এবং সেইভাবে এগিয়ে যেতে হবে। উনি বলছিলেন যে আমরা কেন একটা সুন্দর ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়া তৈরি করতে পারি না, এবং তখন I already sent a letter to him. উনি কিন্তু বলেছেন যে ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়াটা সুন্দর করতে হলে এটা একটা অ্যাপলিটিক্যাল স্টেপ হতে হবে, রাজনীতিক ওখানে আনলে চলবে না, সুন্দর যদি চাইতে হয় সত্যি সত্যি। তা আমি তখন ভাবছিলাম যে বাংলাদেশে তো আরো 63টা ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়া হতে পারে, যদি 63 জন সুন্দর মানুষ, ভালো মানুষ এইভাবে তাদের ধারণা নিয়ে এগিয়ে আসেন। তা আমার মনে হয় যে বাংলাদেশটা সুন্দর করা খুব বেশি ডিফিকাল্ট না আসলে, যদি আমাদের মনের মধ্যে শুদ্ধতা থাকে। আমি জেনারেল খানের একটা বক্তৃতা শুনে তক্ষুনি লিখতে ইচ্ছে হলো, এটা বাংলায় বলেই আমি বাংলায় শুরু করেছি আসলে, 3-4টে লাইন। সেখানে আমার মনে হচ্ছিল উনি যখন ট্রান্সপোর্ট সিস্টেম, যারা বায়ু, যাহারা তোমার বিষাইছে বায়ু, সত্যি সত্যি ট্রান্সপোর্ট সিস্টেম দিয়ে আমরা ঢাকাকে বিষিয়ে দিচ্ছি। ওখানে লিখেছিলাম যে থাকো তুমি শহরে, সত্যিটা কহরে, বাতাসে মেশাও বিষ প্রত্যেক প্রহরে। তো সত্যি সত্যি আমরা বাতাসকে বিষাক্ত করে দিচ্ছি। আমরা যদি এইরকম সেমিনার আরো অ্যারেঞ্জ করি এবং এখান থেকে পাওয়া ধারণাগুলো, সিদ্ধান্ত, প্রস্তাবনাগুলো ঠিক জায়গায় পৌঁছে দিতে পারি। যদিও অনারেবল প্রফেসর নজরুল ইসলাম স্যার বলেছেন যে the honorable minister here is not in charge of urban planning, কিন্তু ওটা হয়তো লোকাল গভর্নমেন্টের কাপ অফ টি। কিন্তু আমি এই মিনিস্টারকে এমন ইয়েতে দেখেছি, ভাবনা এবং কৃতিত্বে, কর্তৃত্বেও, আমি মনে করি যে তার দপ্তরের এটা যদি নাও হয় মিনিস্ট্রির, এটা ডিফিকাল্ট হবে না in achieving those goals that we are kindly mentioning here. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. I would now give the floor to Mr. Muhammad Abu Naim Sohag, board member, Bangladesh Institute of Planners.
Thank you. A very good afternoon. I am Mohammad. Thank you, Mohammad Abu Naim Sohag, representing Bangladesh Institute of Planners in this forum, being its fellow and board member. With due respect to the honorable chief guest of today's seminar, His Excellency Mr. Obaidul Muqtadir Chaudhary, Member of Parliament, and the Honorable Minister of Housing and Public Works, Ministry of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, along with other distinguished guests and emeritus professors like Professor Nazrul Islam sir, along with Ms. Dr. Segulta Hussain, and from our BUET, Professor Sabir Ahmed, and as well as Ms. Avanti and others. So I am taking this opportunity, being a town planner, to our honorable minister, because we all know most of the topics we have discussed today, it delineates to different ministries, but since our minister, he is here representing the Ministry of Housing and Public Works, and most importantly, the development authorities of our country of various cities like the CDA, KDA, even for our capital, Razuk, it directly falls under his ministry. So may I draw the attention to the Honorable Minister, sir, as Dr. Segufta Hussain mentioned in her preliminary remarks, we all know for a livable city, for a livable country, we should have at least 25% green coverage, specifically for the city areas, and at least 12% water bodies. Whereas the data she presented, and we all know our Dhaka, it lacks less than 3% green coverage and less than or around 2% water coverage. So which mathematically indicates on 8, less than on 8 what is required, we lacks in green coverage, and it is less than on 6. That means maybe around 15% what is required our water bodies. So may we draw some attention, Honorable Minister, to you, so that through your development authorities, even we know it is not the direct responsibility of the development authorities who are working for our different cities, but if we can focus on it, maybe the approach we are following through different government entities and agencies and other development organizations, maybe that will help us to attain our goal to some extent. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. The next intervention will be from Mohammad Shahidul Islam, Additional Chief Engineer, Urban Management, LGED.
Good afternoon. I am Shahidul Islam, Additional Chief Engineer, Urban Management, LGED. LGED is working in 3 sectors: rural, urban, and water sectors. And we also provide the technical support to the local government institutions. With the help of LGD and consulting, we prepared master plan, most of the cities, and with as per the Act of the Pur Shobha and Situation Act. But most of the master plan is not approved yet. Only 5 master plan approved till today. I request Mr. Honorable Minister to coordinate these issues with the local government minister and the other stakeholders for approving the master plans. Otherwise, the cities are growing in unplanned way. This is my request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very valuable and relevant point. So now we have come to the close of the open discussion, and I would now like to request the Honorable Chief Guest, Honorable Minister, Mr. R.A.M. Obaidul Muqtadir Chowdhury MP, to benefit us with his voice of wisdom and his
জনাব সভাপতি, সম্মানিত অতিথিবৃন্দ এবং উপস্থিত যারা শুনছেন, সেই সম্মানিত ব্যক্তিবর্গ, আপনাদের সকলকে অনেক অনেক শুভেচ্ছা। আমার 2টা অনুযোগ আছে, যে জন্য আমি বাংলায় বলছি। একটু হলো যে আমি ইংরেজি জানিও না, একটু বুঝিও না, এটা একটা কারণ। আরেকটি কারণ, যে এখানে যারা উপস্থিত আছে সকলেই মনে হয় বাংলা বুঝবেন, সেই জন্য আমি বাংলা বলবো। আমি এখানে আসার আগে 2টো বক্তৃতা নিয়ে এসেছি। একটি ইংরেজিতে লেখা, হয়তোবা পড়তে টড়তে পারবো কষ্ট টষ্ট করে, আরেকটি বাংলায় লেখা। কিন্তু এখানকার যে আলোচনা হয়েছে, এই সবকিছু শুনে আমি মনে করেছি যে আমি কোনো লেখাই পড়বো না। আমি আমার মতো করে কিছু কথা বলতে চাই। এই যে নগরায়নের বিষয়টা নিয়ে যে কথা বলছেন এবং যে বঙ্গবন্ধুর রেফারেন্সটা এসছে মাজহারুল ইসলাম সাহেব এর কথার পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে বঙ্গবন্ধু যে কথাটা বলেছিলেন সেটি হলো খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয়। ঢাকাই বাংলাদেশ নয়, ঢাকার বাইরেও বাংলাদেশ আছে, কিন্তু দুর্ভাগ্যবশত দীর্ঘদিন যারা আমরা ঢাকায় থাকি, যেমন ধরেন আমি 1964 সালে ঢাকায় এসেছি, তারপর থেকে আমি ঢাকা শহরের বাসিন্দা। আমরা ঢাকার বাইরের বাংলাদেশ আছে এটা বুঝতে চাই না। এমনকি আমি যে দূর গ্রামের বাসিন্দা, সেই গ্রামেও যারা থাকেন তারা এখন মনে করেন ঢাকাতেই চলে যাওয়া ভালো, কারণ ওটাই হলো বাংলাদেশ। উনি গ্রামে থাকতে চান না, এমন একটি পরিস্থিতি হয়েছে। সুতরাং এই পরিস্থিতির নানান কারণ থাকতে পারে। এখানে অর্থনীতিবিদ থাকলে বা যারা সমাজ নিয়ে ভাবনা করেন, আমাদের নজরুল ইসলাম স্যারের মতো, তারা এইসব ব্যাপারে বিস্তারিত বলতে পারবেন যে কেন এরকমটি হচ্ছে। যেমন ধরেন আমার যে গ্রাম, তা থেকে আমার শহর ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়া, তার দূরত্ব মাত্র 10 কিলোমিটার। কিন্তু আমি আমার ঘনিষ্ঠ কয়েকজনকে দেখেছি তারা ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়াতে ফ্ল্যাট কিনে চলে আসছে, গ্রামে থাকে না। আমি চ্যালেঞ্জ দিয়ে বলতে পারি তাদের ছেলে মেয়েদেরকে যেখানে পড়ায় সেই স্কুলগুলা তার থেকে কম মানে আপনার দক্ষ স্কুল আমার গ্রামে নয়। আমার গ্রামের স্কুলগুলো সম দক্ষতা সম্পন্ন, তারপরেও চলে আসছে। এখন যদি ধরেন আপনি চিকিৎসা ফ্যাসিলিটিজের কথা চিন্তা করেন, চিকিৎসা ফ্যাসিলিটিজের দিক থেকেও আমার গ্রাম থেকে ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়া আসতে সময় লাগে মাত্র, যদি আপনি এখন যে রাস্তাঘাট আছে আর কি, এটা শেখ হাসিনার বদৌলতে সেটা 10 থেকে 15 মিনিটও লাগে। 10 কিলোমিটার বা 15 কিলোমিটার দূরে হওয়া সত্ত্বেও চলে আসা যায়। সুতরাং কেন তারা আসলো এটা আমি জানি না। বলেন তো, হাজারীবাগ থেকে যে ট্যানারি এই নিয়ে গেলাম আমরা, অনেক যুদ্ধ জেহাদ করে সাভারে নিয়ে গেলাম, সাভারে ট্যানারি ফ্লারিশ করলো না কেন? কেন ওইখানে আমরা ফেল করছি? এখন তো ট্যানারি যে কারণে আমরা হাজারীবাগ থেকে ট্যানারি নিয়ে গেলাম সাভারে, সেই কারণ তো ওখানেও ঘটছে। সাভারের যে নদীগুলো প্রবাহিত হয়েছে সেই নদীগুলোকে তো দূষণ যুক্ত করে দিচ্ছে, দূষণ মুক্ত নয়। সুতরাং নগরায়নের বিষয়টাকে শুধু বিল্ডিং তোলার বিষয়টা আর কিছু মানুষের বসবাসের সুবিধাটা আর কি আমাদের সকলের জীবন জীবিকার বিষয়টার সাথে যুক্ত করলে চলবে না। নগরায়নের সাথে যুক্ত করতে হবে আপনার যেটা এখন একেবারেই মডার্ন কনসেপ্ট, সেটা হলো যে আপনার প্রাকৃতিক যে গ্রোথ সেটার দিকেও খেয়াল রাখতে হবে। আমাদের ন্যাচারাল যে প্রিজার্ভেশন সেটাকেও রাখতে হবে, যেটাকে আপনারা বলেন ইকো ফ্রেন্ডলি একটা অবস্থার তৈরি করতে হবে। এখন পূর্বাচল, আমি জানি এখানে যারা আছেন যাদের পূর্বাচলে অলরেডি প্লট পেয়েছেন তারা, অথবা যারা পান নাই, যারা আমাকে চেনেন, আমার সাথে পরিচয় আছে, যারা প্লট চাইবেন। আমি 1964 সালে ঢাকা শহরে এসেছি, বলেছি আপনাদেরকে। পূর্বাচলে কি এত বড় যে আমরা যে একটা উপশহর করেছি, কথাটা ঠিক হয়েছে? ঠিক হয়েছে কিনা বলেন, কি নগরবিদ আপনি কি মনে করেন? বসুন্ধরা যে করেছে, আমি পূর্বাচলের কথা এই জন্য বললাম যে বসুন্ধরার মালিক পক্ষ যেন অসন্তুষ্ট না হয়, কারণ আমার ভয় আছে। প্রকৃতিকে ধ্বংস করে দিয়ে আপনি নগরায়ন করছেন, প্রকৃতির দিকে খেয়াল রাখছেন না। জলসিঁড়ি করার সময় কি প্রাকৃতিক যে অবস্থাটা আছে এটা কি মাথায় ঢুকেছে কখনো? পূর্বাচল করার ক্ষেত্রে, আমি পূর্বাচলে গিয়েছিলাম, আমি বলবো আমার অভিজ্ঞতার কথা বলবো। আমি দেখলাম যে ওখানে বন প্রায় নেই, 9% বনের চেয়েও কম আছে। আমি একসময় চাকরি করতাম, বন এবং পরিবেশ মন্ত্রণালয়ে চাকরি করতাম। তখন আমাদের বনের পরিমাণ ছিল সারা দেশে 9%, অথচ মিনিমাম 25% আপনার থাকতে হবে আপনার বন। এটা নাই, এখন কিন্তু ভালো। এখন কিন্তু সকলেই আপনার গ্রামে গঞ্জে যেখানে যান, একটু জায়গা খালি পেলে সেখানে সে বনায়ন করে একটা স্যাপলিং করে। তো এই যে অবস্থাটা, এইটা হলো যে আমাদের কিছুটা আমাদের নিজস্ব প্রবলেমও আছে আমাদের। এই প্রবলেমটার কারণে আমাদের এটা হয়। তো নগরায়নের ক্ষেত্রে তো আরো অনেক কিছু দেখতে হবে। আমরা নগরায়নের নামে বুড়িগঙ্গাকে শেষ করে দিয়েছি। শুধু বুড়িগঙ্গা নয়, টোটাল ওয়াটার সিস্টেমটাকে আপনার ধ্বংস হয়ে গেছে আজকে। এটাকে কিভাবে উদ্ধার করা যায় সেটাকেও নগরায়নের সাথে পরিকল্পনায় আনতে হবে স্যার। বর্জ্য ব্যবস্থাপনার কথাটা চিন্তা করতে হবে, কঠিনভাবে চিন্তা করতে হবে। কৃষি জমি, সম্ভবত রাষ্ট্রদূত ফয়েজ আহমদ সাহেব একটু উল্লেখ করেছেন কৃষি জমির কথা। কৃষি জমি প্রতিদিন এমন কোনো দিন নেই যেদিন একটি কৃষি জমি আপনার নষ্ট মানে নগরায়নের ভেতরে ঢুকে না যাচ্ছে। আমিও করব, এই কয়দিন পরেই ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়াতে আমার একটা কিছু কাজ করব যেখানে অনেক কৃষি জমি চলে যাবে। আমাদের প্রাইম মিনিস্টার বলেছেন যে মিনিমাম 3 ফসলি জমি যাতে নষ্ট না হয়, আমরা সেদিকে হয়তো লক্ষ্য রাখবো। আমরা তো যত মার্শিল্যান্ড আছে, যত ওয়াটার বডি আছে, সব তো ধ্বংস করে দিচ্ছি। আজকে থেকে প্রায় 15-16 বছর আগে আমি যখন প্রথমে এমপি হলাম, আমার পরিচিত একজন ভদ্রলোক অ্যাডভোকেট, তিনি বললেন যে এরকম পরিবেশ অধিদপ্তর তো আমাকে কাজ করতে দিচ্ছে না। আমি কি কাজ করতে দেয় না? বলছে আমার একটা নিজস্ব পুকুর আছে, আমি একটা ভরাট করে মসজিদ করব। মানে আপনি জানেন মসজিদ করার নিয়ে কথা বলা তো খুব বিপজ্জনক, আর তাও যদি ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়ার মতো জায়গা হয়। আমি বললাম যে ভাই আপনি মসজিদ করবেন, মসজিদ তো আপনার বাড়ির পাশেই আছে, আমি ওনার বাড়িটা চিনি আর কি। না আমাদের একটা নিজস্ব মসজিদ দরকার। হ্যাঁ, বুঝলাম যে ওনার অনেক ব্যস্ত যাওয়ার অনেক আকাঙ্ক্ষা, এই জন্য হয়তো উনি মসজিদ করতে চান। আমি বললাম তা পুকুর ভরাট করে কেন? ওরা তো বাধা দিবেই আপনাকে, এনভায়রনমেন্ট ডিপার্টমেন্ট বাধা দিবে, পরিবেশ অধিদপ্তর বাধা দিবে, আপনি কোন করেন? হ্যাঁ, এটা আমার নিজস্ব পুকুর। আমি বললাম আইনে নিজস্ব পুকুর কেউ পারেন না করতে। তারপরে উনি করেছেন। তারপরে করে একেবারে এখানে আপনার দোকানপাট করে, এবার মসজিদ করে, আল্লাহর পথে যে বেহেশতে যাওয়ার সমস্ত সিঁড়ি-টিড়ি উনি করে ফেলেছেন। এই যে অবস্থাটা, এটাকে কিভাবে মোকাবেলা করবেন? এটাকেও মোকাবেলা করতে হবে। আমাদের তো একটা না, আমরা তো আপনার বিদ্যুৎ করে ফেলেছি, তাই না? কিন্তু আমরা বিদ্যুৎ করতে গিয়ে আমাদের কিছু ক্ষতি হচ্ছে কিনা সেটাও তো আমাদের দেখা উচিত। কারণ বিদ্যুৎ ছাড়া তো নগরায়ন হবে না। তো সুতরাং আমি অবাক হয়ে গেলাম, এই কয়েকদিন আগে আপনার একজন স্থপতি আমার সাথে দেখা করতে গিয়েছিলেন, আমার পুরনো বন্ধু ইকবাল হাবিব। ওনারাও গিয়েছিলেন আমার সাথে কথা বলতে। ইকবাল হাবিব কারণ আমাদের অনেক কাজ, আমাদের এত কাজ যে এইসব করার মতো আমাদের সময় নাই। এখন আমি বলেন যে পূর্বাচলে আমি 25% বনায়ন কিভাবে করব? ওখানে আমি 12% ওয়াটার বডি কিভাবে আনবো? না হয় দুটো খাল, অনেকটা মানে খালই তো বলবো, করতে চেয়েছিলেন লেক শেখ হাসিনা, উনি গায়ের জুড়ে ওইখানে লেক করেছেন, গায়ের জুড়ে জোর করেই করতে হয়েছে ওনাকে। এইটাও ছিল না, বলেছেন এটা এটা তো আমি বাকিটা করব কিভাবে বলেন? কোথায় জায়গা, কোথায়? সব তো প্লট হয়ে গেছে, আমি নিয়েছি, আপনি নিয়েছেন, অমুকে নিয়েছে, তমুকে নিয়েছে, সব প্লট নিয়ে আমরা বসে আছি। আমাদের তো দরকার নেই পানির। এই হলো অবস্থাটা। এই অবস্থায় ইটস এ টোটাল মেস। এখান থেকে বেরিয়ে আসাটা খুবই কঠিন, কিন্তু তাই বলে কি আমরা বসে থাকলে চলবে? আমাদের বসে থাকলে চলবে না, আমাদের বেরিয়ে আসতে হবে। এখন মহাপরিকল্পনা, আরে মাস্টার প্ল্যানের কথা এলজিইডির অ্যাডিশনাল চিফ ইঞ্জিনিয়ার বলেন যে ওনারা করছেন। আপনি জানেন 1967 সালের দিকে এই সমস্ত একেবারে গ্রাম পর্যায়ে পর্যন্ত প্ল্যানিং করে যাতে নগরায়নটাকে, বা যদি আমি বলা যায় গ্রামায়ন, সেটাকেও যাতে একটা পরিকল্পিত অবস্থায় করা যায়, সেটার জন্য একটা আপনার অথরিটি ছিল, সেটা হলো আরবান ডেভেলপমেন্ট ডিপার্টমেন্ট। আমি আজকে কিছুক্ষণ আগে আপনাদের এখানে আসার আগে আমি বৈঠক করে এসেছি, ওইটা একটা ক্রিপলড অর্গানাইজেশন হয়ে গিয়েছে। ওই অর্গানাইজেশনটা কোনো কাজই নাই প্রায়, এরকম একটা অবস্থা। কে করেছে এটা? আমরাই তো করেছি, আমরাই তো দেশ চালাই। এখানে যারা বসে আছেন তারাই তো দেশ চালান। দেশ তো আমার গ্রামের কৃষক চালায় না, দেশ তো কারখানার শ্রমিক চালায় না, দেশ যারা চালান তারাই তো কৃপল করে রেখেছে। আমি কিছুদিন আগে প্যারিসে একটা সম্মেলনে গিয়েছিলাম, সেখানে তারা ওই যে আপনার এটি নাকি প্রথম আর কি ডিকার্বনাইজেশনের কথা বললেন। সেখানে আপনার অল্টারনেটিভ যে আপনার কি বলে এটাকে, বিল্ডিং ম্যাটেরিয়ালস এর কথা বলেছেন, যে এখানে আপনার যাতে আমরা যে ইট ব্যবহার করি এইগুলা যাতে না হয় আর কি। তো আপনার আমরা করব, এইখানে একটা বিল্ডিং রিসার্চ ইনস্টিটিউট আছে, আপনি জানেন এটা ক্রিপল, এটার এখন কোনো কাজই নাই, প্রায় কোনো কাজই করতে পারতেছেন। হস্তক্ষেপ করা উচিত ছিল, তার স্কোপ আছে, কিন্তু ওইখানে যদি কাউকে পোস্টিং দেই, সে মনে করে যে আহারে আমার চাকরি তো বোধহয় ভালো না, আমি বোধহয় ভালো লোক না, কর্তৃপক্ষ আমাকে ভালো জানে না। এবং কর্তৃপক্ষ কিন্তু তাই, যাকে খারাপ জানে তাকে ওইখানে দেয়, মানে যাকে দিয়ে অন্য জায়গায় চলছে না বা কর্তৃপক্ষের সাথে বনিবনা হচ্ছে না, তাকে নিয়ে ওইখানে বসায় দেয় আর কি। কোনো কাজ থাকে না, আগ্রহ হয় যে ওইটা হলো একটা রিসার্চ ইনস্টিটিউট। চিন্তা করতে পারেন, একটা রিসার্চ ইনস্টিটিউটে কোনো কাজ হয় না, তার তো দোষ না, দোষ তো হলো সরকার ফান্ডিং করে না। কোনো আমরা তো ফান্ড দেই না তাকে। ওইখানে যারা রিসার্চার আছেন তাদের কোনো কাজ নাই। ওই ধরে ধরে পিডাব্লিউডির যত লোক আমি অপছন্দ করি সব ওইখানে নিয়ে বসাই দিই। এখানে প্রবলেমটা হলো আমাদের। এই জন্য আমি বলি যে আপনারা যথার্থভাবে বলেছেন এবং এই কাজগুলো করা দরকার। আমাদের সোলার সিস্টেমে আমরা, কারণ আমাদেরকে যাদেরকে সোলার সিস্টেম করার দায়িত্ব দেওয়া হয়েছে, আনফরচুনেটলি তারা কি করে, পৃথিবীর সব দেশে সোলার সিস্টেম চলে, সোলার এনার্জি সব জায়গায় চলে। আমি আপনার অক্সফোর্ডে গিয়ে ইয়েতে ক্যামব্রিজে গিয়েছি, সেখানে দেখেছি যে সোলার সিস্টেম চলে। তাহলে সোলার সিস্টেম আমার দেশে চলে না কেন? দায়িত্বটা আমার, আমি শুধু প্রফিটটা বুঝি, শুধু টাকাটা পকেটে ভরা বুঝি, কাজটা বুঝি না। এই সমস্ত কিছু কাজই সম্ভব, সমস্ত এই যে আপনার প্ল্যান্ড একটি শহর গড়ে তোলা খুব অসম্ভব কোনো বিষয় নয়, সবটাই সম্ভব। আপনারা যেভাবে চান সেইভাবেই সম্ভব। শুধু যারা কাজটা যাদের দিয়ে কাজটা করানো দরকার, তাদের মধ্যে একটা ছোট্ট একটা শব্দ আছে, এই শব্দটা তাদের থাকলেই চলে। সেই শব্দটার নাম হলো, ইংরেজিতে আপনারা বলেন প্যাট্রিয়টিজম, আমি বাংলায় বলি দেশপ্রেম। এইটুক থাকলেই চলে, আর কিচ্ছু না। যে এই দেশটা আমার এবং আমার ভবিষ্যৎ বংশধরদের, এবং এই দেশটাকে আমি সামনে নিয়ে যেতে চাই, এবং এটাকে নিয়ে যাওয়ার জন্য এই কাজগুলো আমার করা দরকার। আমাকে জিজ্ঞাসা করেছেন একজন প্রাক্তন মন্ত্রী আর কি, যে আপনার পূর্বাচল কবে চালু হবে? আমি বললাম, আপনি তো চালু করতে পারেন নাই, তো আমার ইচ্ছা যে আমিও এইভাবে কাটিয়ে দিয়ে যাব। কি বলবো ওনাকে? ওনার সময় উনি চালু করতে পারেন নাই, উনি পূর্বাচল এলাকায় বসবাস করেন। আমি পারবো, এখন আমাকে বলতে হবে যে আমি কবে চালু করবো। কবে জানেন শুরু হয়েছে? 1996 সালে পূর্বাচলের কাজ শুরু হয়েছে, এবং এটা হলো 2026-এ পৌঁছি করছে, তাই না? পূর্বাচলে শুধু পুলিশের কয়েকটা বাড়ি উঠেছে, এছাড়া আর কিচ্ছু নাই। যেখানে বড় বড় ইয়ে ছিল আপনার লেকের মতো ছিল, সেগুলাকে আপনার মাটি ভরাট করে প্লটিং এর ব্যবস্থা করেছে, আর ওইগুলোকে আপনার সরু খালে বা ড্রেনের উপর, খালও না, ড্রেনে রূপান্তরিত করে দিচ্ছে। এগুলো পূর্বাঞ্চলের কাজ। এই মানসিকতার আগে পরিবর্তন করা দরকার আমাদের, মন মানসিকতা পরিবর্তন না। সেটা যে আপনার এমনিতেই হবে এটা এরকম না, আইনও দরকার। এই জন্য আমি বলেছি, আমার মিনিস্ট্রিতে আমি বলেছি যে আপনাদের সৎ হওয়ার কোনো দরকার নেই। কেউ সৎ, আমি কারো কাছে সততা ডিমান্ড করি না। আমি একটা জিনিসই ডিমান্ড করি, সেটা হলো আমার দেশে যথেষ্ট আইন কানুন আছে। এই যে বিল্ডিং কি একটা কোড আছে না আপনাদের, বিএনবিসি 2020, তারপরে 1952 একটা আপনার ইয়ে আছে, একটা আছে, কনস্ট্রাকশন একটা আছে। ওইটা ফলো করলেই তো চলে। ওইটা ফলো করেন না কেন? ইঞ্জিনিয়ার সাহেবরা এইসব বক্তৃতা দিতেছে, আমিও বক্তৃতা দিতেছি, আমি রাজনীতিবিদ, আমিও বক্তৃতা দিচ্ছি, আমলা সাহেবও এসব বক্তৃতা দিচ্ছে। সবাই শুধু বলে যে প্ল্যান্ড শহর দরকার। আরে বাবা, তো আপনি আইনটা মেনে চলেন। 95% একটা শহরে যদি 95% আনঅথরাইজড বিল্ডিং থাকে, তো সেখানে আপনি কিভাবে আপনার অথরাইজড বিল্ডিং করবেন? ওইটা করেন আপনারা। আসেন আমরা সকলের ভেতরে একটা এই যে আন্দোলন, এই আন্দোলনটাকে জোরদার করেন এবং বলেন যে পরিবেশকে ধ্বংস করে পাহাড় কেটে দিবেন। আপনি পাহাড় কেটে আপনি নগরায়ন করবেন, এটা হলো? নদী ভরাট করে নগরায়ন করবেন, এটা হলো? এটা হয় না। আপনি জানেন যে আমাদের নগরায়ন কোথায় গিয়েছে? সনপাড়া চিনেন? সনপাড়া কারা কারা চিনেন? সনপাড়া বলেন। এই সনপাড়াতে আপনার এই কি আপনার প্রবাসী পল্লী, তারপরে আরো কি কি, তারপরে পুলিশ অফিসার হাউজিং সোসাইটি 2, তারপরে আরেকটা কি যেন দেখলাম, এরকম হয়ে যাচ্ছে। সনপাড়াতে বাড়িঘর করে যদি কেউ ঢাকার অবস্থা দেয়, তো আমি আমার বাড়িতে আছে এটাই ভালো আছি, কারণ ওইটাও তো ঢাকার কাছেই হয়ে গেল। কারণ আমার বাড়িতে যেতে লাগে 2 ঘন্টা, আপনি ঢাকা শহরের এইখান থেকে এই মাথা থেকে ওই মাথা যেতেও 2 ঘন্টাই লাগে। অসুবিধা কি? আপনারা মেট্রো রেলে চড়ে 10 মিনিটে আসবেন। আমিও কয়দিন পরে এখন 1.5 ঘন্টা লাগে ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়া থেকে ঢাকায় আসতে। কয়দিন পরে আমাকে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার অনেক আগে বলেছিল, কই ঢাকা শহরে জায়গাটাকে কিনে টিনো না, তোমাদের অবস্থা এরকম করে দিব যে তোমরা 1.5 ঘন্টার ভিতরে বাড়িতে যেতে পারবা, বাড়ি থেকে আসতে পারবো। আমরা তো সেই পথে চলে যাবো, অসুবিধা নাই আমাদের। এই হলো অবস্থাটা আমাদের। আমাদের আসুন আমরা সকলে মিলে, শুধু যে এই ওনারা যে বললেন আর আমরা শুনে গেলাম, রাজনীতিবিদদেরকে আমি বলবো এবং আমি বলবো আমলাদেরকে, যারা দেশ চালায়, আমাদের ভিতরে কোঅর্ডিনেশনের অভাব আছে। এখন এলজিইডিও পরিকল্পনা করবে, ইউডিডিও করবে, একটা জায়গা থেকে হওয়া উচিত, একটা জায়গা থেকে হওয়া উচিত। এবং এইটা আর যদি না হয়, অন্তপক্ষে কোঅর্ডিনেশনটা থাকা উচিত। কোঅর্ডিনেশনটা নাই। আমি কিছুদিন আগে, আমি যখন মন্ত্রী হয়েছি তার কিছুদিন পরেই আমি একটা পত্র লিখেছি। পত্রটি মানে এটাকে কি বলবো, যে বিফলে গিয়েছে। এই পত্রে আমি উল্লেখ করেছি কি কি আছে, কিছু বললাম না। আমি শুধু বলবো আমাদের অবস্থানটাকে একটু দেশপ্রেমিক অবস্থান থেকে দেখা উচিত। দেশটাকে রক্ষা করতে হবে। ঢাকা শহরকে ফেলে দিলেও চলবে না। আর ঢাকা শহরকে নিয়ে নাচানাচি করতে করতে আমার ব্রাহ্মণবাড়িয়া, আপনার রাজশাহী, ওখানকার সাতক্ষীরা, এটাকে ফেলে দিলেও চলবে না। এখন তো অবস্থাটা আমাদের খুবই খারাপ। আমি কিছুদিন আগে পার্লামেন্টারি স্ট্যান্ডিং কমিটি অন আপনার ট্যুরিজম অ্যান্ড সিভিল এভিয়েশন ছিলাম। দেখলাম যে কি করব, সুন্দরবন তো আপনার তার এক্সিস্টেন্স থ্রেটেন্ড। এখানে যে মায়ানমারের বন্দুকের গুলির কারণে আমি এতে সেন্ট মার্টিনে যেতে পারি তা না তো। সেন্ট মার্টিনে যে লাভটা কি? যে সেন্ট মার্টিন আমি 20 বছর থেকে বা 25 বছর আগে দেখে এসেছিলাম, সেই সেন্ট মার্টিন তো নাই। পানিতে নামতে পারবেন না আপনি দুর্গন্ধে, রাস্তা নাই, হাঁটা যায় না। একটা আমরা করেছি, আমরা সকলেই মিলে করেছি। দায় দায়িত্ব শুধু আওয়ামী লীগের উপরে ছেড়ে দিলে হবে না, দায় দায়িত্ব শুধু বিএনপির উপরে ছেড়ে দিলে হবে না, দায় দায়িত্ব শুধু এরশাদের ওপরে ছেড়ে দিলে চলবে না। আমরা সকলে মিলে করেছি এই কাজটা। এই সকলে যে মিলে যে দুষ্কর্মটা করেছি, সেই দুষ্কর্ম থেকে বেরিয়ে আসার জন্য আমাদের চেষ্টা করতে হবে, এবং এই চেষ্টাটা করতে হবে এই যে এনারা যে সমস্ত কথাবার্তা বলেছেন এগুলাকে একটা জায়গায় নিয়ে আসে, যেটা আমার মনে হয় যে প্রফেসর নজরুল ইসলাম স্যার অত্যন্ত ভালো কথা বলেছেন যে আপনার একটা ন্যাশনাল আরবান পলিসি এইটা থাকা উচিত। কিন্তু পলিসি থাকলেই চলবে না, পলিসির এক্সিকিউশন লাগবে। পলিসিটাকে কাজে লাগাতে হবে। ওই আবার কাজে লাগাতে গিয়ে ওই যে আপনার হাজারীবাগের জায়গায় সাভার করলে চলবে না, হাজারীবাগের জায়গায় সাভার করলে চলবে না। সাভারটাকে সাস্টেইনেবল করতে হবে, সাভারটাকে লিভেবল করতে হবে। সাভারটাকে আপনার এমন একটা অবস্থা নিয়ে আসতে হবে যাতে আপনার প্রোডাক্ট এখান থেকে ইউরোপে যেতে কোনো অসুবিধা না হয়। কারণ আপনি তো সাপ্লাই দিবেন, সাপ্লাই দিতে হবে আপনাকে, কিন্তু আপনার প্রোডাক্ট ইউরোপ নিতে চায় না, যে আপনার প্রোডাকশনের মান ভালো না, সেটার জন্য। তো আসুন আমরা সকলে, আমি ওই যে অন্যদের মতো বলবো না, আমি বলবো আমরা আমাদের দায়িত্বটা সঠিকভাবে পালন করি, তাহলেই অনেক কিছু হবে। ঢাকা শহরকে বাঁচানো চেষ্টা তো করতে হবে। 400 বছরের পুরনো ঢাকা শহর, এটাকে হঠাৎ করে, কিন্তু দেখেন কলকাতা কিন্তু বেঁচে যাচ্ছে। আমি কিছুদিন আগে কলকাতা গিয়ে আসলাম। আপনাকে যদি বলি যে রাত্রে 8টার পরে আপনার দোকানপাটের বাতি বন্ধ রাখবেন, রাত্রে 2টা পর্যন্ত 3টা পর্যন্ত ঈদের সময় আপনার ইলেকট্রিসিটি ছিল মার্কেটে। পৃথিবীর কোনো বড় শহরে, কোনো বড় শহর না, কোনো শহরে আপনি রাত্রে 8টার পরে আপনি দোকানপাটে ইলেকট্রিসিটি পাবেন না। একমাত্র নাইট ক্লাবে থাকে, আর হয়তো আপনার কিছু ইয়াতে থাকে। আমি কিছুদিন আগে টোকিও থেকে আসছি, একই অবস্থা। প্যারিসে একই অবস্থা, কোথায় নাই। কিন্তু আমাদেরকে যত কথাই বলেন, ওই যে যদি প্রধানমন্ত্রী অর্ডার দিচ্ছে, আপনি জানেন যে আমাদের প্রধানমন্ত্রীর একটা অভ্যাস যে উনি ভালো কাজের কথা বলে যান, কিন্তু আমাদের অভ্যাস উনি যা বলবেন তার বিপরীতটা করব। এইটা হলো অবস্থাটা। রাত্রে 8টার পরে আপনার দোকানপাটে এখন দেখেন না, এখনো কিন্তু 12টায় যান আপনি দোকানপাট খোলা পাবেন। এটা কথা হলো? পৃথিবীর কোনো সভ্য দেশে, এমনকি অসভ্য দেশেও থাকে না, এটা অবস্থা নাই। সভ্য অসভ্য কেউই এটা করে না, আমরা যেটা করি। আমাদের মতো এত, এটাকে কি বলা যায়, আল্লাহ রাব্বুল আলামিন কোরআন শরীফে বলছেন যে ফুজুল খরচ করা এটা হলো শয়তানের ভাই। যে আমাদের মতো ফুজুল খরচ করার লোক আর পৃথিবীতে কোথাও পাবেন না, অকাজ করার মতো কোথাও লোক পাওয়া যাবে না। সুতরাং আমরা আসেন সকলে মিলে যে প্রচলিত আইন যেটুকু আছে এইটুকু অনুসরণ করে সুন্দরভাবে একটা শহর গড়ার জন্য চেষ্টা করি। সবগুলো শহরকে আমরা একত্র করে দেখি এবং সেটাকে করার জন্য চেষ্টা করি। আমি আর আপনাদেরকে কষ্ট দিতে চাই না। আমি খুব ভালো কথা বলতেও পারি না। আমার এই খারাপ কথাগুলো যে শুনেছেন ধৈর্য ধরে, এই ধৈর্য ধরে নয়, মানে বাধ্য হয়ে শুনেছেন, সেই জন্য আপনাদেরকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। অশেষ ধন্যবাদ। আর ইংরেজিতে বক্তৃতা দিতে পারলাম না বলে আমি দুঃখ প্রকাশ করছি, কারণ আপনারা হয়তো ইংরেজি ছাড়া বুঝেন না, সেটার জন্য দুঃখ প্রকাশ করছি। কিন্তু আমার ভাইয়ের রক্তের রাঙানো 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি, এটা আমার ভেতরকার কথা। আমি যে কলেজে পড়াশোনা করেছি সেই কলেজে ইংরেজিতেই পড়ায়, ঢাকা কলেজ। আমি সেখান থেকে পড়ে এসেছি, কিন্তু আমি এটাও জানি যে আমার ভাইয়ের রক্তের রাঙানো 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি ঢাকা কলেজের একজন ছাত্রের লেখা, গফফার চৌধুরী। আপনাদের সকলকে ধন্যবাদ। জয় বাংলা, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু, বাংলাদেশ চিরজীবী হোক।
Thank you, Honorable Sir, Honorable Chief Guest, and the Minister of Housing and Public Works for your indeed wisdom and your kind direction and the determination that you have expressed for the work that is lying ahead of us. May I now take the floor just for 2 minutes? Distinguished audience, in fact, so much has been discussed by so many of experts and scholars and very relevant people that there is not much left for me, and also we have to finish very quickly. And we have heard the Honorable Minister And in fact, we have got a very valuable direction from him, how we should work and what we have to take up. Indeed, the scholars and experts, they have discussed all relevant points and aspects of the problem. They have identified the challenges, and also they have given suggestions and recommendations which are to be done. Importance of coordination, importance of policy, importance of policy harmonization of different authorities, and importance of critical sectors involved in urbanization. All have been highlighted very well. And the lessons and practices, best practices, that has also been emphasized to follow other megacities and their success stories. So it is, in fact, a beginning of the discussion on the subject. And as we have got from learned speakers today and the panelists, we can work together, in fact, and we can also take up study and research necessary, be it policy harmonization, strategy, or planning. But definitely the key ministry, the Honorable Minister is representing, and the development authorities of the cities and different other departments, it is their subject. But of course, if it comes to the question of research and study, we can give our support, and we are ready to work with them. And we can also bring up publication on the basis of that. And also another important point I'd like to highlight is the question of technology. We have to think out of the box, and we also have to think of solutions in terms of emerging technology, particularly of 4IR. Thank you all, and it's my pleasure and duty actually to express our deep gratitude and heartfelt thanks to Honorable Minister and for sparing his valuable time for us, and for gracing this occasion as our chief guest. And we also express our heartfelt thanks to all the panelists and keynote speaker. And we are very grateful to them for their valuable insights. And we thank everybody, all participants, and including the media and also the colleagues from the BIISS. Thank you all, and we are closing the seminar part. We'll have a short photo session, and after that lunch will be served. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to request our Honorable Chief Guest to receive a memento from the respected Chairman and Director General of the Institute. Thank you, sir.